to set the scene here, okay? Because this is what is going to happen tomorrow, right about now. And when you're listening to most of these affiliates on ESPN Arkansas, Gabe Gackle will be on the pitcher's mound at Bohm Walker. There will be, I'm guessing, a few thousand brave fans making it through cold temperatures to sit down for a 12:02 first pitch. Gackle's just kind of warming up right now, and we've had the anthem a few minutes ago. Teams have been introduced. We've had the lineups and everything. Bubba gave his 3 keys to the game. We did our 10-second pause for station ID. And then I don't know who the Washington State batter is that's going to be batting leadoff. I don't think the Razorbacks have any clue either, because this is a team that's pretty much impossible to scout. They have only 6 players back from last year, a bunch of junior college players, 4 Division I transfers that didn't really play all that much where they had been before. So whomever it is, Gackle has just thrown the first pitch of the season, and we are officially within 24 hours now of the start of Arkansas baseball. It's halftime on ESPN Arkansas, hitthatline.com, and the Hit That Line Now app. Phil Elson here, my partner Matt Jones, Christian Johnston producing. We'll have James Teague from the Teague Law Firm in just a moment. BE texted a moment ago, Matt. He said, we made it. We made it to 24 hours. BE, that's like finishing the marathon at 26 miles. There's still 0.2 of a mile to go. We haven't made it quite yet, but we'll get there. Just wait.
It sounds like somebody has a 13.1 sticker on the back of their car.
Yeah, B's has got a 26 there, and I have no idea what that means because he has never finished a marathon.
It's like I brag about reading half a book.
James Teague is here with us from the Teague Law Firm, former Razorback pitcher, who... all right, let's say you're out in the bullpen. The first pitch of the season has been thrown by one of your teammates. When does it actually start now to feel just regular like it's baseball?
Well, I think when you come out of the tunnel there, what used to be the old tunnel for us, now they're kind of coming out of the other side. But you're sitting there in the bullpen, and you're kind of thinking, I really hope he has a good outing and he makes it deep into this game. But at the same time, if he doesn't, I got to be ready to go. So the bullpen's always a little antsy because things can turn on a dime at any minute.
You better be ready to go tomorrow, right? You ever start a season with a doubleheader? I think I had a minor league season that may have started with a doubleheader because of an opening day rainout. I'm sure it's happened in Razorback history before. It feels different to open with 2 instead of 1.
Yeah, it is a little weird because, you've got so much energy going into the first game, all the anticipation, all of the work in the off season. So I think it almost exhausts you a little bit more because there's so much that goes into it. So you got to really be prepared knowing that all of that angst is going to be packed into now 2 games, and you got to stay locked in for both.
Hey, how was it, James, before opening day? Like we just talked, it's 24 hours. How was the feeling before you started a new season the day before? Did y'all have anything? Did you have any type of rituals or anything that you would do?
I was just trying to keep food down. For me, I was kind of a nervous Nancy, they'd say. It was kind of my downfall at times, especially in 15. I actually got to start opening day, and so I knew kind of that whole week, I was throwing out the first pitch. What do I need to do as far as my routine, sleep, don't get too worked up about here or that. If someone wants to argue, just let it go, save your energy kind of deal. But yeah, everyone's kind of got their own routine, their own superstition, just whatever each individual guy needs to be ready to go. I think they know.
I always think of it. I know with you, like T-Gax, I'm sure you were pretty fired up. Does somebody ever have to remind you, like the Jake Taylor character in Major League when he grabs the baseball from Veg Head as he's flipping it up and down, looking nervous? Like, hey, buddy, we got another 161 of these after this. Anybody have to just sort of, or if they did, who was it that could kind of chill you down because they were there before?
Yeah, so I had a kind of a rough first inning in that the first inning of 15, and I remember Jordan came over and he was like, "All right, first one's over with. Forget about it. Time to start pitching." Kind of as if to say, like, everyone knows the first inning's a little nerve-wracking, like time to lock it in and stop being a you-know-what. So that was a little bit of tough love from him, which usually is kind of what you got. But I think that was a talent that he had of getting people to kind of calm down and lock in and not necessarily patting them on the back all the time and, cheering them on, but doing it in a way that was a little bit tough.
So a thing that stands out about Washington State is that we have no idea what this team is made up of. They're completely different from last year. And I know that Dave and the coaching staff have contacts all throughout the country in college baseball. They can get scouting reports. You can't really get a lot of video on the junior college players, and they've got a lot of JUCO players. They got 10 freshmen. There's just not a lot to go off of from last year when you're thinking of scouting your opponents. So I kind of think that just means as a pitcher, you're pitching to your strength. And that's how I know pitching coaches want their pitchers to pitch anyway normally.
Yeah, I think Gackle's definitely going to come in and everyone else just in attack mode. If there's one guy who, does a lot of damage early on, you would kind of pivot, kind of do scouting on the fly, so to speak. But I think he's going to come in, try to fill up the zone, force contact, let his stuff, be his strength, to where ideally, your Friday night guy in Gackle is going to, potentially outstuff guys. So let's be aggressive. And if they're, attacking the fastball, or if they're, better than maybe he expected, a guy here or there, you adjust from there.
And I know the idea of throw every pitch with purpose, like you believe in what you're doing, but there's a difference between believing in what you're doing and throwing every pitch with purpose and maxing out every pitch. And that's got to be a difference in somebody like Gackle or anyone that's making a change from a 2 to 3 inning pitcher or even a 1 inning pitcher to somebody that you're really going to want and hope can stretch it out to 6, 7 innings as the season goes on. So can that be a little difficult sometimes to delineate between throwing a pitch with purpose and not maxing out early?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point of, is purpose or conviction, is it analogous with maxing out? Are those the same thing? And I think that they're not. So for him, as he starts working and getting deeper into games, it's finding the balance of, where's 85%, somewhere in that range that I can sustain versus, let's say, 90 or 100. And the problem I had trying to go to a starter is, I was actually more consistent at 95% than I was at 80 or 75%. Whenever I tried to slow down and conserve, I actually had less command. And so each guy has got to know, where that sweet spot is in terms of percentage of effort helps you be kind of in your game, in your timing, but also give you the ability to stretch, into a game in that starting role. And that's going to be different for every guy.
One guy that I think is going to break out, and I know he's on a list for preseason stopper of the year, and I always say, to me, there's a difference between a stopper and a closer. A closer is going to finish games for you, and sometimes he'll try to stop rallies in the middle of a game. Late in a game, I can see Fouch being in any sort of a role for just that. That's one of those guys that he can come in and have max effort, but there's also a subtle difference from what you need from Fouch, from what you had last year and what you need this year. Or really, I think what you want from any closer and see the growth of him as a pitcher. And it's the ability to throw to a batter or two in 1 inning, sit down while your guys go and hit, and 5-10 minutes later go back out and be just as good. And that's not easy to do for relievers. And I feel for Fouch, that's a big step forward for him, hopefully.
Yeah, there's such a rush when you come out of the bullpen and you get into the game and what's the situation? I need to be ready to throw off speed early. I need to be, attacking in the zone. It's a high pressure situation. Then to, hopefully get out of that situation and kind of have the relief of, okay, we survived whatever threat was posed that inning. But then, sit down and come back and bring the same intensity, bring the same timing. Maybe the adrenaline has gone down a little bit. And so I think that's something that the relievers can find throughout the season is, I feel maybe a little less amped, but how do I bring the same timing and intensity that next inning out, that I had out of the bullpen? And then also coming out of the bullpen, how do I tame it enough to where, I just don't come out, hair on fire, throwing it everywhere, but, kind of channeling all that adrenaline and excitement into being repeatable and getting outs.
Hey, James, who are you most excited about? If it's a newcomer or if it's a returning player, but opening day, who are you most excited about getting to watch?
Well, I think we've talked about both of them for me. It's Gackle. Can he go deep into games? Can he find that rhythm as a starter? And then Fouch, is he going to be the guy who puts together the stuff with the composure and the experience that you hope, guys have as they grow? I mean, Fouch is the guy, if you just put him, stuff-wise, that he's going to be as good as anybody in the country. But I think we saw at times before maybe he was a little unsure. He was kind of his body was maybe a little ahead of his mind. It wasn't quite synced up. Because if he's able to sync that up with a 100-mile-an-hour arm with the stuff that he's got and kind of bring that composure and maturity with it, I mean, that could really be something to see.
All right, so it was 10 years. 10 years ago, you started that opening day game, right? That's been 10 years, James. How about that?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
It doesn't feel any better 10 years later because I didn't make it too far in that one. It wasn't my best, but I think that just goes to say a lot happens in a season. Started there, didn't go well, worked back into the weekend rotation, threw out of the bullpen, and ended up finishing the year, as a starter. So everyone is going to have that journey throughout the season of, had a bad outing or came in a little timid or didn't make the adjustment, felt over, whatever it is, how do you overcome that and how do you get better? That to me is way more important than just the results of that individual game and then making a determination, this guy's good enough or not good enough. It's never really that. It's more of what adjustments are you making to get better, because everyone who's on this roster is good enough to play here. It's just, are they going to find ways to consistently perform?
James, of course, is a former Arkansas pitcher, but he's part of the Teague law firm and back for another season with us here on Halftime every Friday. We'll usually be doing it right about now, but we've had to change some things since there's no show tomorrow. Sometimes families have disputes, just like baseball teams. And, James, I know people need somebody that they trust with guardianships, adoption, and child support in their corner, and Teague Law Firm is exactly that.
Yeah, we've continued to handle a lot of those cases, and for me, I like the child aspect of it. When the client comes and they're like, I've got this problem, I think there's XYZ threat that either maybe the other party or an opposing party is posing, or, and just to kind of get into the facts and look at it from ground level and say, okay, here's where we are, and here's a path to get where we need to be to either eliminate that threat or get that issue in front of a judge or try to resolve it with the other attorney. I mean, there's a lot of ways of getting to resolution, and it's a case-by-case basis. And I think it's enjoyable to, in hindsight, to look back and say, here's where we started and here's where we finished. And, I was a part of that process of getting from A to B. It's very rewarding.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here.